話せ。じゃあ、私から話すね。だから話せと。
No, no, no. Y'all got the routine completely off.
もうやめて！遊戯！
話せ！
More on that at the end, by the way. Surprisingly, we didn't open with a recap of the previous episode, even though this blatant exposition could have sufficed as such.
心を操作されていたんだと思うわ。
Well, duh.
And at the layer of the bundles, Goldats re-brainwashed Amane into Gentle and even add a little extra. Say, how much y'all want to bet he's gonna turn out to be a furry by the end? Later, Rosemary tried to check in on the little thief girl at her actual home, which we didn't see because I don't think they wanted to pay their guest star more than needed. More on that next week. Regardless though, he was able to confirm that she was indeed at home.
予想外の展開ね。
Well, it was nice while it lasted. Honestly, I'm kind of surprised she didn't say anything about Rosemary obviously hiding something here. Maybe they were punishing her for being a bit of a smartass last week. Anyway, the Cures likewise decided to call it a day and head home. Though before they did, Yui started up a bit of a frank discussion about brainwashing and its effects on people. And, well, a tad bit oversimplified by not even going into the lasting mental scars it can leave behind, and instead making it mostly about food, freaking gluttons. This was still a well-done scene with some nicely done shots. It's also conveniently circumventing my major issue with this episode, but more on that in good time. Anyway, they decide to all try and help Amane the next day. However, they probably should have set their alarms a little earlier. Then again, I wouldn't blame them if they would want to sleep in on a weekend. Anyway, I guess the Abazo actually attacked a store this time. Honestly, the shot made it look more like it was just appearing like usual, but whatever, we gotta accept a lot of things with the show. And of course, they had to start up the whole "you're not actually evil" talk, which, to be fair, is at least more acceptable here, rather than right after Yui's countrywide broad assumptions. Unfortunately, this didn't lead into much of a fight, though to be fair, there was a lot more that needed to be done in this episode. Like, upping the tension by saying that the personality of the character that we barely know anything about could permanently be lost. Again, more on that later. As well as introducing a blatant plot device.
絶対に取り戻さなきゃ。Amaneさんの心も体も。
Phrasing?
And of course, being the main character, Yui volunteered to have a talk with Amane to try and befriend her, which, saying that out loud, kinda makes me wish that they'd just go full white devil here, but hell, also for more Kabuto too.
おばあちゃん言ってた。
人のものを盗むやつはもっと大事なものをなくすってな。
Legit been sitting on that clip for a while, for obvious reasons. Personally, I like it a little better than Yui's granny's quote. I mean, it works for this particular episode, considering what's coming up, and I probably just have a bias. Anyway, they wanted to figure out a way to lure Gentle out.
それ、ランランに考えがあるんだ。
I mean, come on, I should know all about brainwashing, considering I went through it twice. Seriously, thank God XD actually gave her a chance to fight the bad guys. And I guess they really did set their alarms early, as they enacted their plan before lunch and before a certain restaurant was supposed to open.
この投稿を見れば、きっと来ると思ったんだ。
So, did the brainwashing also affect her memories about Ron clearly becoming aware of her? Because otherwise, that was just stupidity on your part, girl.
姑息な真似を。
Curse you and my inability to use Google! Anyway, in one of her rare occasions, Gentle decided to act like an actual thief and just book it. This led to the scene from the intro, which was mostly a setup for a bad pun. Oh, nice to know that the Tropical Rouge humor is still alive and well. Granted, it wasn't as bad as our heroines pointing out a restaurant that was open at that hour. Also, hi Takumi, you still have at least one more week before you become somewhat relevant, and even then you're probably just gonna be cucked by this Yui pairing. Anyway, Gentle captured a hamburger steak fairy and turned some kind of kitchen tool into an abazo.
Hi, it's Fitz with Slap Chop.
Whatever it was, it did lead to a very good fight with Kokone and Ron double teaming it, and the animation budget clearly being all dumped here.
二人とも成長したわね。
Should we even really care about power scaling at this point? At the same time, Yui is also having a really well animated confrontation with Gento, who fought as though this was like the massive blow-off to a long-standing rivalry between the two. Because yeah, this rivalry has been built up just so well, like Ash versus Gary, Cloud versus Sephiroth, Yugi versus Kaiba, Stone Cold versus The Rock. Okay, sorry to any Attitude Era fans out there. I mean, say what you want about pro wrestling, especially nowadays, but there's no denying that they have built some great rivalries and feuds. The key word there being built. In order to get us invested in this stuff, you need to have your characters interact as much as feasibly possible, especially right before the big blow-off fights like this. That way you can actually develop stuff like animosity, backstory we're not initially aware of, or at least some kind of honor or respect held towards the other, which this show has tried to, but not really built up all that well. We don't actually know that much about the girl named Amane Kasai, and yet they expect us to get invested in seeing her return to normal, even though we don't know what that normal baseline is. I'm not saying they needed to go as deep as, say, Love vs. East, but they should have had more than just one conversation to build to this. Don't worry, I totally get you, girl. You didn't even really talk to the real me. My question for this video is, what would you have done to build towards this confrontation, or do you even think it needed more build-up? Anyway, I will at least give points to Rosemary for taking a shot for Yui. Sure, it would have been cool if the Precure had tanked that attack, but whatever. This allowed Yui to pull out the business card from the Kasai shop, which included an illustration of a dessert fairy that Amane had drawn. Because don't you remember how they established that she was a passionate artist?
No, not really, no.
I mean, I get what they're doing here, showing that she does like the food fairies just as much as our heroines, but again, actually build to this stuff so that we can have some idea of what Amane is like rather than doing everything backwards. Anyway, this did start to snap Amane out of it, but then I guess her inner Kingdom Hearts start to awaken? Oh wait, did we actually have to play a ton of supplementary material to actually understand what's going on here? No, of course, it was Goldots, who while also having been a bit of a non-entity throughout this show, did at least get across that he was a threat here when he activated Gentle's dummy plug, and in turn made the Bowser stronger.
Nappa! Yokero!
This forced the Cures to use stronger variations of their normal attacks that didn't look that much different other than extra 500 being added to Yui's punch. Still, whatever, very nicely done, if short sequence, which led to the introduction of the new group finisher, which, yeah, was much better than their individual attacks. Then, hey, at least they found Kokode's proper sound effects.
Spicy flavor!
And I guess Goldots went all or nothing, as this also ended up undoing Amane's brainwashing, and the episode on a good note.
小さじ1杯の希望信じたからこそつかめたのね考察ありがとう
No, and also Takui's finally gonna do something next week. Took you long enough, kid. So, on its own, this was actually a pretty good episode. Of this Amane arc so far, this did at least feel like the most complete episode so far, with a lot of things in it having a proper cause and effect, as opposed to a lot of things just kind of happening for the sake of the plot. And other than a few nitpicks and one really bad pun, it still ran really smoothly. However, when factoring in the wider storytelling, that's where I have issues, especially with how little they've actually developed Amane. And while they certainly could fix this character by developing her from here on out, that still feels like incredibly backwards writing in my opinion, because they really could have used that development here. For me, I really do wish I could have cared more about Amane, because theoretically, this was a great episode for upping her sympathy points. Our main heroine certainly cared about saving her, and clearly went to great lengths to do so. However, I can't honestly care unless I know more about the character, which by the looks of it is going to come after the fact. How did she originally meet Goldots? We'll probably learn about that later. Why did she join the bundles? Do we actually know anything about this girl and not Gentle? Well, actually, we did learn that she was a bit of an artist. But yeah, for an episode that has a big fight that's meant to be a big blow-off, there's really nothing much to blow off if we don't know who the character of Amane Kasai is. I've heard people theorizing that they're trying to do something different with the story structure of this season, but for now at least, I can't agree with it when there are just so many blanks that still need to be filled in. If anything else, I just kind of want to move on from this arc, as I think there have been other things that have been sadly neglected, though at least now are getting some focus. Goldots was finally somewhat proactive in this episode. The fact that they could remote control their subject was at least somewhat of a nice final boss build. And more than anything, especially if you see my original video of this series, I've been wanting to see Takumi play a bigger part, which now that we've concluded the first core of the series, I am really hoping he gets to do something, because he's been criminally underused for someone who's been the opening and the main poster of this show. Because overall, while this was a very well animated episode with almost a frightening amount of plot progression for a slower paced show like this, it was in service of a plot line that just has not gotten the proper build in my opinion. If they take Amane's character in some better directions, I'll absolutely praise them, but for now, can we just get the Wish.com tuxedo mask please? Currently, we're working on the first part of the first Yu-Gi-Oh! Video that we're going to put on the secondary channel that hopefully will be done by the end of this week. It's just going to be a little ranking video for all of the openings in the franchise that hopefully won't be copyright claimed, but hey, if it is, it's going to be on a disposable secondary channel, so at least that's a bit of a workaround. Still, look forward to it. Until then though, for now my friends, and if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna go watch the Hololive girls play WWE 2K22. Legit, it's really damn funny, and also a lot more entertaining than actual pro wrestling these days.